Christmas and New Year's. Okay, basically shut down government. Couldn't that affect the sheriff budget too? Because that would be like bailiffs wouldn't have to work because of the court. I mean, I don't think they hold court between Christmas and New Year's, do they?
You
They
know,
do?
I would certainly recommend that if you gave us direction to pursue this with the bargaining units, we would also talk with DSA and McLEMA and say, you know, how can you be part of this? And there may be other ways. Just theoretically, you could look at having, they can cash out their vacation, and so there might be some ways of looking at that. But again, it's meet and confer, and you'd have to look at that. Certainly, closing on court days would lessen the impact on sheriff's office and social workers, et cetera. And but there are certain offices you cannot legally close, even if you can furlough the staff. And so there's a lot of balancing. You probably don't want to close down for a whole week, but I think a day or so you could probably do.
Well, I think, in my opinion, it makes more sense to do the whole week. That way people can plan. I mean, you know, plan. And I think it makes a lot of sense between Christmas and New Year's for the simple reason, you know, most people don't tend to go, they're not planning on to go get an environmental health permit or something between Christmas and New Year's. They're not starting probably a foundation on their house, so they don't need a building permit or something. So I think it makes a lot of sense to look at between Christmas and New Year's, because it's time that people normally take vacations and time off anyway. And I think, you know, the devil's in the details here.
Yeah, and some of those would come out as a result of meet and confer.
And then, like, you might give Department of Transportation them the week off for their furlough days, and then find out that, you know, a road slide comes in or something, you got to call people out anyway, and there's going to be exceptions to that. So, but, you know,
Okay,
listen to my colleagues.
thank
what
you.
they-
Quick comment by Supervisor Delbar, and then go to the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would caution the board about basing any decisions today on potential furloughs. It is a very complicated and long process, and having sat through that before up here, it's not something we can simply say, well, here's a dollar figure, plug it in. I would strongly caution us about going down that route.
I can have a peanut on that.
Please. To the CEO.
I was going to say the same thing. What we're doing right now is designing a program on the fly without meet and confer. Some of the suggestions that Allison and Jennifer and I have talked about, by choosing the particular days, we end up in different pay periods, for instance, and we reduce the effect on employees' paychecks. So nothing's worse than giving employees a week without pay right around Christmas. So there are ways I think we can make it more attractive during the meet and confer process, but all we need is general direction to start the discussions. I mean, there are things that you as elected officials, we cannot change your pay. So both the sheriff and the auditor and the board members, for instance, what you do is you draw full pay, and then you have to write us a check back for every furlough day, because under the law we do not have the authority to reduce the pay of an elected official. Those are all the little nuances that you have to get involved in. So just give us the general direction, and we can pursue it from there.
You take the full bag.
Okay, how about, just for additional conversation, we take a look at leaving the landfill closure money the way it has been. Leave it the way it is on the board there, not including transfer out, but leaving it in the fund. We direct staff to investigate the furloughs and where we might go with those, either a week or particular days, yet to be worked out with the bargaining units, because I remind you, we might wind up going there anyway due to possible cuts from the state, so it makes sense that we start the investigation in that way. the third item, I think, would be to leave the external funding in there or leave it out. But 3 items for conversation. I'm trying to herd the cats back to get this thing resolved tonight to where it will allow incremental changes as we get in additional information, et cetera, et cetera. So are those 3 areas we could discuss and try and make some headway? Leave the landfill money intact, investigate furloughs, and leave in or take out, however we want to do it, the external funding promises that we've pretty much made to this point. CEO.
Again, just in an attempt to get us out of here, our problem is the 174.
Sure.
I know Johnny had suggested earlier he was talking about RCRC's budget. I think for membership in RCRC, that's about, I think, $12,000 according to Christie. We could take that $12,000 out of the budget because it's not something we're actively doing at this point in time. Take that $12,000 out, that gets us down to about $162,000. Reduce the general fund subsidy to solid waste by $162 just to give us a balance and so we can do our schedules, and then we'll work with the privatization to see if we can gain back that one.